Hello and welcome back to the Bundesliga Show. It seems like it's been a long time, doesn't it? It's been over 2 months since we last recorded, incredibly. I
Far
think
too
obviously it's been a really, really long break, hasn't it? But yeah, obviously I'm delighted to welcome Peter Weiss again back to the show. How are you there, Peter?
I'm doing well, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here, and I am with you. This break has been far, far too long. Football,
Yeah.
as it's meant to be, being the last European league to come back. We are in this football desert. We're absolutely starved for our
Yeah.
sacred and beloved Bundesliga.
Absolutely. I think I've watched more Premier League football this last month than I've done in the last 5 or 6 years, to be honest. I mean, it's been, we've had to, yeah.
More test fixtures than we'd like to admit. We've been watching all of these test fixtures in eager anticipation for our beloved Bundesliga to come back. And finally, at long last, the time is at hand.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people have been looking forward to it. And as you say, this Friday is the big kickoff with Leipzig versus Bayern Munich. And what a game to kick off with as well. I mean, a massive game, really a kind of title race match as well, which we'll touch on a little bit more later. But just before we start, let me remind you that we are still in partnership with Bully News as well, which I think Peter Weiss writes obviously a lot of articles for, alongside Rune, who will be joining us again on Wednesday for the fantasy football update. And of course, we're still in partnership with Bundesliga Boxes as well, who've just enjoyed a really, really successful Christmas batch as well. So keep buying your Bundesliga boxes, and I'm sure there'll be another batch available in the next few weeks or so. So yeah, let's make a start. So obviously today's show is going to be about the second half of the season, or the Rückrunde as it's known as in German. Obviously, only 15 games played in the first half of the season this year, obviously, as a result of the World Cup. And I'm just going to start with the World Cup as well, Peter, because obviously it didn't go to plan at all for Germany. Pretty much the third tournament in a row, really, that didn't. And obviously, I know you're kind of based between the US and Germany, but what was your take then? What did you think of the German reaction to the World Cup and the German performance in general?
And I'd be interested to get your take on Nuremberg. I know in Nuremberg they actually had some well-attended public viewings. They were indoors, of course, during the winter. But I was here in my beloved Bundesrepublik. I am a German Nationalmannschaft enthusiast, as a German citizen, yes, I am half American. But if the U.S. is playing Germany, it's no question. This is my Heimat. This is my fatherland. Interest before the tournament was at an absolute all-time low. If you walked around the Bundesrepublik and you went, pretty much every lamppost and signpost had the boycott Qatar bumper stickers on there. And, you know, we had heard the same thing in Russia in 2018. There was talk of political boycotts and everything like that. But obviously it was summer. People could get outside. They could do public viewings and Fanmeilen, and enthusiasm for the German national team was pretty strong in 2018, all throughout the three group stage matches, the only matches that the German national team was able to contest. And that, of course, happened again. But this time, the support was not so much behind the team, and interest in the tournament did not really pick up. This was not solely political. There were also more superficial reasons, like the fact that it was quite cold, the fact that the gas cutbacks here, the gas rationing, the self-induced gas rationing that everybody's been doing here as part of solidarity with the Ukraine, left us, well, bitter and in a bad mood. And there were also the Christkindlmarkt here in southern Germany, all throughout Baden-Württemberg, and also Hessen, North Rhine-Westphalia, in Bavaria, I'm sure, as well. People didn't have a chance to enjoy those for some 3 years because of the pandemic. And yeah, when you spoke to the average German on the street, they were a little bit more interested in going to get a Glühwein and shop for some trinkets, perhaps look at those kitschy heart cookies that no one has ever bought or eaten in their life. But it's still a very important tradition. Germans don't necessarily like their traditions intruded upon. And yeah, I mean, it picked up a little bit towards the end, when Nicholas Füllkrug became something of a story. And of course, if you ask pretty much any German, most Germans were very, very, very proud that our Jamal Musiala, also of English heritage, was showcased to the world. and was able to really show some incredibly slick skills, particularly in that third group stage match. But apart from that, it was a sad, dour, depressing non-event, as far as I could tell, because, this also, the political dimension was important. The spat over the One Love Armbinde, most Germans found that to be sort of a manufactured issue that wasn't anywhere near as important as, say, the issues that the Iranian team was facing. So they didn't care for that coverage. And they, sadly, we're looking at some, Thomas Müller and Manuel Neuer are past their prime, as was evidenced by their play in those group stage fixtures. And there wasn't too much for us to get excited about. Havertz got a couple of goals. Füllkrug became something of a story. Musiala was there to showcase his skills to the world. Apart from that, there wasn't too much for us to really, too much positive for us to take from this. And we'll be back in some 18 months' time hosting the European Championship. And by then, I'm sure that the enthusiasm will return 100%. It'll be a replay of 2006, the Sommermärchen. So we'll be back. But for now, German national team fandom is in hibernation. The women's Euro generated better television ratings and more excitement within the Bundesliga public. And we're also looking forward to the Women's World Cup this summer, a summer festival that we can view outside with our compatriots. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I think one thing we can guarantee, though, is that the German national team will win a major tournament before the England team next does. I think that's one thing we can pretty much settle for sure.
Well, you're the ones who are going deep into tournaments these days. Not to mention beating us in the Euros and making that famous viral picture of the German girl crying at Wembley. So we still have to get revenge for that. We'll see.
I often make a joke with my German friends, actually, that since I came to Germany in 2018, just before the World Cup, actually in Russia, basically the German team has gone to rack and ruin, obviously group exits in 2018 and 22, then obviously only a last 16 effort in the Euro 2021. And yeah, basically the England team's gone the other way. We've been making semi-finals, finals, which is pretty strange, really. But we've still not managed to make that big breakthrough and actually win one of the things, So I wouldn't be surprised if Germany comes back in style and wins 2026, to be honest. 2024, I should say.
Well, we expect. In our home country, there is no real other choice. Germans expect the semifinals. Period. Yeah. That is your expectation, and we expect a win on home soil. Period.
Yeah.
Anything else?
You never know. Maybe England can repay the favor from 1996. Football will finally come home in Berlin. Who knows?
Yeah, we need to repay the favor of Frank Lampard's goal going over the line in 2010.
Yeah.
Sorry.
At least we got 1966. So, yeah, but it's been a bit of a long time since that happened. So yeah, you never know. But yeah, I think regarding the tournament itself, obviously I did watch quite a bit of it because, as you say, I'm a football fanatic and I just couldn't bring myself to miss any of it. But yeah, definitely living here in Nuremberg, there was definitely a level of apathy. But I did feel as though most of the apathy was before the tournament. I did feel as though once the football got kicked off and, we had a couple of big games, then there was a lot more entertainment, a lot more people interested, let's say that much. And I think that was reflected in the viewing figures as well. I think the game against Japan, although we have to remember it was in the middle of a work day as well, I think it only got like 6 million viewers, which is a record low for a World Cup game in Germany. But then the Spain game, I think it more than doubled the numbers, which still wasn't the typical number. I think typically German World Cup games get between 20 and 25 million viewers live, which is a very high number. It's like about a third of the population watching the games.
Well, when you take into account the fact that there were no, outdoor public viewings in Fanmeilen, these are deplorable statistics. Those figures that you just mentioned don't take the public viewings into account.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So, more than half the country, much more than half the country, perhaps, 50 million people will tune in when the German national team is on. And we can't emphasize this enough. The highest rated German national team game of this year was England beating Germany, the women, in the Euro final at Wembley. And the final group stage match, Costa Rica still didn't beat it. Yeah, so you have that going for you as well. You know, we have to get our revenge on that.
Exactly. Yeah, we did. But I remember at the time, a lot of German people were saying it was the penalty situation. Yeah, I remember that one as well. A lot of German people felt as though they should have had a penalty. But come on, we were due at least one win. You know?
Well, no matter, I'm a absolute dogged women's football supporter, so whatever gets it a higher profile is fine with me. I was still actually quite depressed for a couple of days after well, when Alexandra Popp couldn't play, and it was, it made me sad.
It was a great final, though, definitely. I remember that one clearly, and a lot of people watched it back in the UK as well. And I think in terms of women's football, before this tournament, women's football wasn't really on the map, but definitely the one thing you got to remember about the UK, or at least England, is that like whenever there's any kind of sport in the UK, they will back it to the absolute hilt. You know, like you can guarantee that stadiums will be sold out. It doesn't matter whether it's tennis, basketball, football or rugby, but the fans will really, really back it to the hilt. And I think it was great for the profile to have it over in the UK. But yeah, we digress a little bit anyway. So yeah, let's turn our attention back to the Bundesliga now. So yeah, I just wanted to start off with the transfer roundup, really, because obviously, you know, despite the fact that the football only kicks off on the 20th of January, we have had the transfer window open since the 1st of January, which is typical for all European leagues. And we have seen a few, although not many, big name transfers gone through. So we're going to talk about some of the transfers to and from the Bundesliga as well, and how that might affect some of the teams involved. So I think probably the biggest name to come to the Bundesliga so far is probably Daley Blind, really, obviously, to Bayern Munich. I mean, for me, this is it's an interesting signing, because I think Bayern Munich's strongest point is central midfield, really. And obviously, Daley Blind is a central midfielder. Obviously, he's more of a defence-minded central midfielder. But did this one surprise you a little bit, Peter, or do you think this is a really good signing for Bayern Munich?
It caught all of us by surprise. It's good news for the Bundesliga that Daley comes to play with his old national team compatriots Matthias de Ligt. It's important to note that this is a free transfer. When we talk about the big names that are exiting Germany and the big names that are not necessarily coming to Germany, we can't emphasize enough, and Bundesliga enthusiasts watching this show already know this, that we are dealing with mostly fan-owned clubs. And a club like FC Bayern München is a 50+1 fan-owned club. They're dealing with a negative 33 million transfer deficit from the summer. And that is why they are in a bit of trouble now. They are only carrying a 25-man roster once you include Daley Blind in there. The goalkeeping situation is still not resolved. As Franz Alarm by Bayern. I don't mean to bring props necessarily, but we're just so overjoyed to be back in the Bundesrepublik, where everybody still makes the sacred schlep to kiosks to pick up the latest Sportbild and latest Kicker and talk about it with people. I mean, it's a good signing from a public relations standpoint. Tactically, I don't think it's necessary. And yeah, if you want to jump into how Bayern is handling this transfer window, it shows you that, you know, even our mighty record champions, 10 years champions in a row, they do have their financial constraints. You know, I mean, we'll talk about Jorginho Rutter going to Leeds for 40 million, or Kevin Schade, who is a great player, but Brentford are going to end up paying 25 million once that purchase clause gets activated, and it's going to be activated.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to come to that one as well. I mean, is that going to be like, do you think Freiburg are going to be laughing all the way to the bank with that one? Because, I mean, he wasn't even playing for Freiburg. I think he only started 2 games in the Hinrunde. I mean, 25 million potentially in the bank, but at the same time, he does look like a player with a lot of promise. So who do you think is the big winner there? Would you say Freiburg or Brentford, really?
I hope that both Germany and Freiburg are big winners out of it, because Kevin Schade has shown some amazing skills for the Germany U21s. He hasn't been able to crack the Freiburg starting 11 this year because of some injury problems, and also because Michael Gregoric took off. Took off out of nowhere. Yeah. So, it's a good signing for Brentford, but it just goes to show you what what the financial constraints are and how we're different here. I mean, Brentford, to my knowledge, that was the London club, the one London club that I personally never even saw make it to the Premiership in my lifetime, as I recall. And even they can fork down 25 million for a developmental prospect who is very, very good, but still has quite a bit to prove.
Yeah, the money in the Premier League is absolutely crazy, really. I think Brentford, obviously, to talk about the Premier League club, they're a great success story. I mean, they're a very, very well-run club with a very good manager in Thomas Frank, the Danish man. I mean, they're pretty much like I would say that Brentford operate more like a kind of German club in many ways, just with more money, a lot more money. Basically, that's the thing, I mean, even the likes of Borussia Dortmund and Leipzig struggle to fork out 25 million euros for a player. So for a club like Brentford to do that it just shows the level of finance that the Premier League's got nowadays,
Yeah, that's true. So we have a lot of outgoing transfers, but it's Blind is interesting, but he was available on a free. Let's not forget that. That's how they got him.
Absolutely, yeah. And then obviously that's one big departure, as you say. The other one I wanted to mention is Hoffenheim, because there has been a change to their forward line, hasn't there? I mean, Kasper Dolberg has come in on loan from Nice. A player who has always been highly rated, but has never really hit the big time for me. I think I've seen him play a few times for Ajax and the Danish national team, but he's one of them that, I always feel as though he could be a quality player, but I feel as though we've not seen the real top of his game yet. And I think he's about 24, 25 now. But obviously he has come in to replace, as you mentioned, Jorginho Rutter. I mean, he was a player that I absolutely loved, to be honest. I saw images of Thierry Henry in him sometimes when he played and took on that defender and then went onto the side of his foot. I think, again, he clearly isn't at his peak yet, but I think he's a great signing actually for Leeds United and a big loss for Hoffenheim. But obviously they did recoup 28 million euros for him, so it's not a bad amount of money. But what do you think, Peter? Do you think Hoffenheim are better off with Dolberg in and Rutter out, or do you think they're going to be struggling?
I mean, Munas Dabur, the Israeli, and Ilas Bebu, who is from Togo, I believe, are returning from injury. So they might be the forward line in a 4-4-2 for Andre Breitenreiter in Sinsheim. It also might be the case that, they were looking to offload Jakob Brun Larsen, Dolberg's Danish compatriot. But as I was actually joking with Rune as I was visiting him in Copenhagen recently, that Hoffenheim could have a Danish 4-3-3 now with Dolberg, Robert Skov, and Jakob Brun Larsen leading the trident there. So, I mean, Hoffenheim and Leipzig, and to a certain extent also Leverkusen and Wolfsburg, which are also not 50+1 clubs, they do have the money to shell out for transfers. Something else we could talk about is the fact that Augsburg have had a very, very active transfer window. They've just signed they've signed one new striker, Bejo, the Croat. They've signed a new fullback, and pretty soon Kelvin Yeboah is going to come in. And let's not forget that Augsburg were able to outpace Wolfsburg for Ricardo Pepi last transfer window. Something that's interesting about Augsburg is it's all kind of shrouded in secrecy. But since this U.S. investor came on board, Bolt Football Holdings, which I believe they have some tentacles in the Premiership as well, they've got a little bit more money backing them now. I mean, we're assured that this is not a 50+1 violation, that Augsburg is still a fan-owned club. It's still financed by the fans primarily, but they've got a little bit more U.S. backing as well. So, as is oftentimes the case in German transfer window politics, these non-50+1 clubs are going to be able to outpace the fan-owned clubs for incoming transfers. Doesn't mean that other clubs aren't doing things more intelligently in the long term and are building better squads in the long term. I can talk to you about just anything you want me to talk about in that regard. But so your non-50+1 clubs, which have either company backing like Leverkusen and Wolfsburg do, you could say that Leipzig have company backing from Red Bull GmbH. Hoffenheim is backed by Dietmar Hopp and SAP. And now Augsburg has a suspicious amount of money to throw around.
Yeah. I think it only really came into the limelight when they signed Ricardo Pepi, as you say. I mean, that was the shock of the last January transfer window. And I mean, let's be honest, it was an 18 million euro flop as well, to the highest degree. Like, I think the guy is playing for some kind of mid-table Dutch team, Groningen.
Actually, he's doing really well in Groningen now.
Yeah.
But he never did score a Bundesliga goal. And I don't think he's coming back to Augsburg either. So they're just going to offload him probably for a fraction of what they paid for him. And here they have money to shell out more for more players. So,
Augsburg are a strange club, aren't they? Because as you say, there's a lot of mystery going on with them because they pass themselves off as like an innocent, like Bavarian small club. But I mean, they do have a lot of money in the coffers. You know, like they're one of the big spenders of the Bundesliga. I'd say they're in the top 7 or 8 spenders really in the Bundesliga, especially in terms of transfer fees. Anyway, you know,
the last 3 transfer windows that has been the case, and as I said, we have football journalists in the Bundesrepublik working overtime to do a little bit of sleuthing to see just exactly how this new investor holding, which is American based, is backing Augsburg. So we don't know yet, but I have full confidence in the sleuthing journalists of this great country to find out precisely what's going on.
It'll be interesting to know anyway. Yeah. And just a few other signings of note. I mean, Jérôme Roussillon has joined Union Berlin from Wolfsburg. I mean, he was a player that I really liked. I think 2 seasons ago when Wolfsburg had that really good year and they finished in the top 4. I mean, he was a really good player at left back. I mean, for me, he is a good signing for Union Berlin. You know, they're a side that love a bargain, aren't they? They really, really do love a bargain, Union Berlin.
It's a beautiful signing that's right in line with the Union Berlin philosophy, which is they will pick up some players that most Bundesliga sides have already cast off. Jérôme Roussillon no longer played a role in Wolfsburg. Paulo Otavio is the starting left back. I think he played just a few relief appearances this season. And, you know, it looked like he was going to leave Germany on a free this summer entirely. And when I found out that Union had picked him up, just like they pick up so many different journeymen, you know, across the Bundesliga, I was really, really happy with that. I was pleased with that. I was happy to see that Roussillon is going to get a chance, and he will get a chance in Urs Fischer's rotative scheme. So it'll be great to see him play again. You know, another transfer, speaking of Wolfsburg, that we all wanted to see. We wanted to see another Frenchman, the former Wolfsburg captain, Joshua Guilavogui, go to Stuttgart. Because he's also scheduled to depart German football on a free after the season concludes. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen. Looks like Jörg Schmadtke is going to block that transfer to Stuttgart. But we wanted to see, you know, since we brought up Frenchmen who get a second life in the Bundesliga, that's just a story that German football fans love. And let's not forget that Anthony Modeste was a fantastic story in that regard, in that he was marooned in China. He went AWOL, and then he came back to German football. And after all of these injury-plagued seasons where they thought he was going to retire, he broke through for Köln last year. And even if he's not doing so hot for Dortmund, this time around, Germans are still rooting for him. So Germans love a good comeback story. Hopefully Roussillon will be one. Maybe Guilavogui can find a new club here in Germany after the summer, and maybe Modeste plays on as well. We'll see. But so good, 3 good potential French comeback stories that we love to.
I think that's one of the things I love about the Bundesliga, though. You know, you do get players that you just think this guy surely has nothing more to give, but they always just have that little bit more. And I think, you know, these kind of players have more of a connection to the fans. You know, the likes of Anthony Modeste, Roussillon. You know, they're not massive names by any means, but they always, you know, with the fans behind them, they can push their levels so much higher than you could possibly imagine, really. You know, and as I mentioned before, you often see with the Bundesliga that a player has one really good season, then randomly drops out of the team out of nowhere, and then he joins another club, and then he comes back and has a resurgence, you know. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Roussillon maybe even start playing more games, as you say, for Union Berlin this season.
Who
knows what he can do?
Yeah, well, I mean, Urs Fischer's been tweaking his tactics a little bit, so he might not be using wingbacks anymore. But I sincerely hope that he gets a rotative chance in there in the Europa League at the very least. Yeah, we're looking at probably a 4-4-2 from him, so it might not be the same 3-5-2 rotative setup that we got from Urs Fischer early in the season. Yeah. But I'll be rooting for him. And Union, I mean, they're speaking of a comeback player. They're going to probably put Kevin Behrens up there in the 4-4-2 alongside Geraldo Becker is also a great comeback story. He was on the bench for Union. He wasn't playing. So Union, whether it's Robin Knoche, also from Wolfsburg, Nico Gieselmann, who is in Düsseldorf, among many other places. Yes, the way they can bring in journeymen and how they can thrive is quite. Of course, the fairy tale went bad with Max Kruse, who was the one of the prime examples of how Union could breathe new life into a player. Yeah, and then he went to Wolfsburg for more money, and now he's probably not going to play in German football again. So there's some fairy tales go bad. But
but I guess he has himself to blame, really. Like, as you say, he had a job for life, so to speak, at Union Berlin, really, there, didn't he? He was one of their key players, and then he chooses a bit more money at Wolfsburg, one big payday, and it all goes wrong ultimately, doesn't it? So,
well, I mean, I don't fault him for that. I don't fault him for saying, okay, I got a 2-year contract here. I'm 34 years old. I'm gonna make a little bit more money for retirement. The social media posting that eventually got him, sort of kicked off the team, and all of this stuff that's a little distasteful. I still like Max Kruse. I still think he's a good footballer, and I still think that he's a good man. Just a little bit, a little bit too much on the social media front, and particularly getting into arguments with his old teammates and things like this. We could have done without that.
I mean, he's been a journeyman as well. Let's be honest, he's played for a lot of clubs, and he's done well for most of the clubs, but he's never had that longevity at one club, has he? I mean, I'm pretty sure he's played for 5 or 6 German clubs, plus Fenerbahce in Turkey as well. So
he's a character. Germans like characters. Germans don't mind the fact that he left his poker winnings in the taxi, or ate too much Nutella, or would always post. I was fine with him. He would post these Instagram things about like the blitzers, the blitzers that give you traffic tickets in Germany. When you break the speed limit or run a red light or something like this. He would always post his traffic tickets and complain about how German society is constantly, putting speed limits where they shouldn't be, putting cameras behind trees and things like that. So we like the character that Max Kruse was. It's kind of a shame that it came to that end.
And I think the other point, one that surprised me a little bit, is the fact that it seemed as though Bochum were going to sign him. And I thought he would be a great signing for them because, I mean, let's be honest, Bochum, they're not exactly oozing with quality on the front line, are they? And I thought he could be potentially a great signing. But it seems as though, from what I can gather, he was ready to join, but the sporting director didn't fancy him, really. Are you a bit surprised about that one? Or do you think, given his age, that could maybe have influenced the decision a little bit?
Well, nobody at this point, it's too much of a danger. He could be too disruptive to the team. So no German football team is going to touch him. It's interesting that you should bring up VfL Bochum, because I think that they've had a very effective transfer window. They've brought in Kevin Schlotterbeck, who's actually Nico Schlotterbeck's slightly older brother, from Freiburg on loan. And they've also brought in Pierre Koundé-Melong, the Cameroonian international who once played for Mainz. I think actually that Bochum, and I thought this before the season too, I think that the changes in the defensive line after the loss of Amor Bella-Kotchap to Southampton, and combined with some injuries, got them off to a disastrous start. And that's why Tom Price got fired. But since then, they finished the Hinrunde on a high note. I think they really were one of the stronger teams to finish. And I like the veteran leadership that they have in Anthony Lucia, Daniel Suarez, also Christian Gamboa. Speaking of journeyman, it looks like Sadie Yanko might start it right back for
old school.
and they have in Philipp Hoffmann, they have the former KSC striker, from Karlsruhe. They have someone who he's been sort of growing into the top tier. He's been growing into the game. Simon Zola is still there. They have the Filipino typhoon Gerrit Holtmann, who's
legend, the Balkan Messi.
Absolutely. So he's absolutely murderous on the flanks. My first bold prediction of this Rückrunde preview is that Bochum are not going to get relegated. I think that they're not even going to be on the relegations playoff place. I think that they are going to achieve safety, and I think that they're going to stay in the Bundesliga for another year.
Well, yeah, definitely. And also you can remember Osano as well is going to come back as well. Like he missed quite a bit of he played in the World Cup, but obviously he missed the Hinrunde mostly through injury. Yeah. But I think he looked good in the World Cup, and obviously, he's not going to be the most popular guy in Germany. After I think he scored one of the goals against Spain, didn't he? Or even against Germany, didn't he? Bag one against Germany as well.
He and Ritsu Doan scored against Germany. They're still very popular, as is Daichi Kamada, as is Mayu Yoshida, as is Genki Haraguchi, as is this. Japanese players are all very popular in Germany, so we're happy to have.
There's a lot of good ones as well. There's no question about that. So many good Japanese players in the Bundesliga.
The Samurai Blue, since I would say about 2011, 2012, has been made in Germany, and
definitely.
That's how ever since Shinji Kagawa or Kagawa Shinji, if you prefer, we've been the right breeding ground.
Definitely. Okay. So let's move our attention from transfers more towards how the table is looking now. Okay. So obviously let's start at the top with the title race. I mean, obviously Bayern Munich are leading the table currently by 4 points. So it's not like a massive gap that they've currently got, but it's a significant gap from SC Freiburg, who are currently second. Again, we just expect it nowadays, don't we? The last 18 months, they've just been the story of the Bundesliga, along with Union Berlin, really, haven't they? Like they managed to defy the budget and the, wage structure there to finish way, way higher than what you'd imagine on paper. RB Leipzig, finished the Hinrunde really strongly. They're only 6 points behind Bayern Munich, and they'll be looking to cut that lead to just 3 points as well on Friday night when they host Bayern Munich as well, which already looks like a huge game, doesn't it? I mean, I think a lot of neutrals will be supporting Leipzig there, maybe even in Germany, but I'm not sure, to be honest.
No, we'll probably be supporting Bayern. Most of the neutrals in Germany, and this comes from a guy who's absolutely not a Bayern fan. Leipzig, when it's Bayern versus Leipzig, if it comes down to Bayern versus Leipzig for the title, I want it to be Bayern. I want it to be a traditional fan-owned club. Also, I'm really, really hoping that some of our devastated national team players, Joshua Kimmich being number one, but also maybe Thomas Müller and Leon Goretzka to a certain extent, and Serge Gnabry, who had a good first game but then sort of fell off, and Leroy Sané. I sincerely hope that they can sort of shake off the World Cup blues and get back into form for the sake of both the German national team and German football. Freiburg have looked really, really good in the test fixtures. I think that a player to watch in the second half of the Rückrunde is going to be Daniel Kofi Kjera, from St. Pauli player. Christian Streich's been toying with some interesting tactics during the test fixtures that we've all been watching here in Germany. And I think Kjera is going to be his new either sort of number 10 / anchoring short striker. And I think he's going to have a really, really good Rückrunde. And I think that Freiburg they're going to do very well. I don't think they can test for the title in any case. The title is going to come down to Bayern, Leipzig, and my second bold prediction of this podcast, Eintracht Frankfurt, as title contenders. So those are your big three, I would say.
Yeah. And who would you go for fourth then? So you're predicting, and are you going to go for Bayern Munich to win the title, or do you think it's possible that Leipzig and potentially Eintracht Frankfurt could even win the thing this year?
I think Eintracht Frankfurt couldn't do it. I absolutely do. I think that with Randall Colomorani being in the form that he's in, with Jesper Lindström and Daichi Kamada also, being in such excellent form. And the way that Oliver Glasner has just made, he's taken players like Ansgar Knauf, Christian Jakic, and placed them, in totally, also Eric Jr. Dina Ibimbe, in totally unfamiliar tactical positions, and they're thriving there. Yeah. So, I think that they're great. Sebastian Roda and Djibril, that might be the best midfield in all of the best double six setup in all of German football, apart from Kimmich and Goretzka. And I really think that's my bold prediction, that at the end of the season, at the Römerberg balcony there in Frankfurt, when they're holding up the Meisterschale.
Yeah.
And maybe the fact that the Bundesliga has taken such a long break can even benefit Eintracht and the other German teams in Europe, in the Champions League. Maybe we get a German champion. Okay, the Frankfurt double.
Yeah, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Well, I reserve the right to backtrack on that. But I think that Frankfurt probably are the most serious title. Well, Leipzig as well, because of Nkunku, and because of Werner, and because of Sava Schlager and Dominik Szoboszlai and all these. They're very talented. That's your big three, in my opinion. And for fourth place, I would probably tip Leverkusen, based on the fact that Florian Wirtz is coming back, and the team can probably make up some serious ground. We'll see how they do. Without a lead striker, Patrick Schick is not fit yet. But that would be my. What about you, my friend?
That's a bold prediction, I was going to say, because obviously Leverkusen, they did recover a little bit I think they won the last 3 games of the Hinrunde, didn't they, which has kind of improved their position a little bit, but they are only 12th at the moment, currently 9 points behind the top 4, but as you say, they do have a quality roster, and if they can get Florian Wirtz and obviously Patrick Schick on better form, then there's no question that they can do it, but I'm not going to go for them to make top 4, though. I don't want to sound boring, but I am going to go for Bayern Munich to make it 11 out of 11. Yeah. I would love to see Frankfurt, really. I think after Nuremberg, and probably Union Berlin, they're kind of my third team, really, in Germany. I absolutely love them, really. I just love the fans and the culture around the club, and just the fact that they're winners as well. I really love that too. I think watching them last year in that Europa League run was just a joy to me, really. And I was so happy when they won it. I think we did a live stream as well, and I was celebrating on the screen. I was so happy, even though they played my British brothers in Glasgow Rangers. But I was shouting for Frankfurt all the way. And I do like that. I like a winning team. I like a team that can not only play good football, but they can also go that extra mile and actually win a tournament. Which is obviously in Germany, we see Bayern Munich dominate, well, really everything. Let's be honest. They dominate the league, the cup, not quite so much dominate the cup, but obviously they still win most of them. And there's not many German teams that can really say they've got Frankfurt. They've got silverware to their name in the last 2 or 3 years, but obviously Eintracht Frankfurt is one of them. And I do believe that I think they'll finish second. Yeah, I do believe that they'll finish second behind Bayern Munich. Then I would agree. I think RB Leipzig are shoo-ins for top 4 as well. But then I'm actually going to go Freiburg. I think Freiburg will have enough quality to see it. Obviously, last year they were pretty close as well, but this year I just think they've stepped up a gear as well. I think they've become a little bit more consistent, a little bit better defensively. They concede a few less goals as well. And as you mentioned, Grigorovic, he gets the goals, doesn't he? Nobody really expected him to be that good when he signed from Augsburg in the summer. But, he is a quality player who can get the goals. And I do believe that they will get in there. And I just think Borussia Dortmund, I don't see very much hope at all for them to get top 4. They just look, especially those last 2 games before the break, they were woeful, weren't they? Absolutely woeful.
Well, they do get Sebastian Haller back, and he did score a lightning-fast hat-trick in one of the test fixtures.
Yeah.
We'll see. With all of the stuff going on around, the striking core is not bad. You have Modest, who is a classic target man, whom they need to figure out, but he's kind of useless in Dortmund because the flanks are so weak. They've got their fullbacks are so weak, and the pace up the wings with this rotating cast of characters is not doing so well. So he's more of a what we call the joker, a guy you can bring off the bench, hopefully get some late goals. We skipped over Yusuf Moukoko in the transfer window discussion. Obviously, Germans are very, very proud to have this phenom playing for us. He's got a ways to go, developmentally speaking.
Yeah.
I personally hope he doesn't make the switch to the Premiership or to too soon, because I still feel like he has a lot of aspects of his game to develop.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Haller can obviously, if a former Eintracht Frankfurt player, he was part of that famous. He could make a difference. He most definitely could, provided he can get himself into top form immediately. I hope you're right with Freiburg. Every German hopes you're right with Freiburg. Christian, we'd love to be able to go to a Champions League match at the new Europa Park Stadion, which is not bad. It's actually, a lot of times when a club like Freiburg moves out of, a traditional ground like the Dreisamstadion, and they come into something that's, you would think that it's more corporate or quiet. No, same great atmosphere. We'd absolutely love that. We'd absolutely love it. And we'll see. I mean, basically what Schleich's got going on, he's got Kjera doing this. He's got Grifo and Doan on the flanks. Problem with Freiburg is the midfield is weak. Chris Höfler and Maximilian Eggestein make too many mistakes, and I have a bad feeling about how that sort of soft underbelly of theirs is going to hold up over the course of the month. That's what I'm concerned about, and I'm concerned about Union too. This new 4-4-2. It's not the same Union game with Rani Khedira sort of patrolling the midfield and playing against the ball, letting the opponent have possession, and then unleashing these counters. Sorry to say so, but it looks like one of my Americans that I cover in my weekly column, Jordan Sibachu, also known as Jordan Pifak, is not going to get. He got off to a great start, but he's a little bit flop. We'll see. Geraldo Becker and Kevin Behrens, maybe they can make it work. Yeah, I guess that brings us to who we think will qualify for the next 3 European places. I think Freiburg does that. I think Wolfsburg does it, and the third one would. Freiburg, Wolfsburg, Dortmund are going to the Europa League.
I think I would agree. I was going to touch on Union Berlin as well, because one of the questions I wanted to ask you is which of the top half sides do you expect to kind of really drop off in the second half of the season? And for me, I was going to say Union Berlin. I just think the way they started the season, it was just marvelous, wasn't it? They were top of the league for the first 12 rounds, which was, and I think they'd only lost one game in that time. But for me, the big problem is a lot of key players badly dropped off, especially on the front line. I think Geraldo Becker started like an absolute machine, didn't he? I think he was on 6 or 7 goals in as many games, but then I don't think he scored again after those first 6 or 7 games. And I think, as you mentioned, Jordan Sabathia, he badly faded off after a good start in the first 5 or 6 games, didn't he? And I just don't know where the goals are going to come from for them. And I think they only got 1 point from the last 3 or 4 games of the Hinrunde, which is the reason why they're 5th at the moment. And I can see them dropping down to like 9th or 10th in the second half of the season. Would you agree with that, or do you have more
absolutely
for them?
Yeah, Jordan's been the real problem. I think Becker can still, and we'll see. Behrens actually, he scored some goals in the Conference League last year. A couple of really pivotal ones. I think that he could score for this team. And they're also you have to be kind of a Bundesliga nerd to know this, but they're going to try with Tim Skaka, I think, on the wings. He was going to go to Schalke, but then they nixed that deal because Fischer wants him on the wings. Yeah. What this new Urs Fischer 4-4-2, what we can expect of it, I'm not really sure, because Becker, he can provide assists, but he's not. I neglected to mention with Eintracht Frankfurt, my apologies, I neglected to mention how important Mario Götze has been for that team. Yeah. And he doesn't record of a lot of assists, but he records the pass before the assist, which we don't record in football, right? We're pre-assist. Some people do. Yeah. that's what you need in Union. I mean, you got some guys that can generate some goals, and on set pieces they're not bad either. Trimmel's very good.
Yeah.
The captain is very good. Yeah, how the forward link up play works is not convincing based on what I saw in these test fixtures. And you also have the problem of the fact that Union was never, even when they were at the top of the league, they were never a team that really wanted the ball. They were a team that sat back and absorbed the pressure and everything. So you could sort of see their downfall coming.
Yeah.
But let's get your three for the European places then, I suppose.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I think obviously Bayern, Eintracht, Leipzig, and Freiburg, which is actually the current top four. I'm predicting them to keep the top four. But then I would say, for the two Europa League spots, I would agree. I think Wolfsburg are going to get fifth. Actually, I do like their side, and I think it was just a matter of time before Niko Kovac really kind of found a blend. For me, they've got a big roster. Actually, Wolfsburg, they have a lot of players. Obviously, they've offloaded a couple of them like Roussillon, but it was always a matter of finding a blend in a formation that worked. And I think it started pretty poorly, like it was for most of last season. But if you look, they won the last 4 games of the Hinrunde, and I think they played well. They look a side that balance attack and defense well, and I just think they've got a lot of quality players in there. You know, the Nemetcha brothers look very, very good. They've got other options as well. With Jonas Wind is going to be back to full fitness, and I just think they've got a bit of quality all over the pitch, and I think they could go closest to getting top 4, other than the 4 sides that I mentioned, in my view. And I would agree, Dortmund will get Europa League. I think they'll be 5th or 6th. I can't see them falling below that. Then for 7th is a tough one, really, because, you know, there's a few sides that have a chance. I don't think it'll be Union Berlin, as I mentioned, so we've got to look a little bit further down. I would possibly go with Gladbach, actually. I just think they're not a perfect side by any means, but I think they did show a few good performances, and they've got a good side. A lot of players that are going to be really high on confidence. Marcus Thuram, you know, I mean, he played in a World Cup final just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, but he
got an assist in a World Cup final. So this is a player with real quality. Yes, the way they destroyed Dortmund on the last day of the Hinrunde as well gave me confidence. And I don't think they're a perfect side, and they've got a lot of improvement to do under Daniel Farke, but I think they'll just have enough to get 7th, in my view.
Well, we'll see. I mean, yeah, I mean, I would definitely tip Leverkusen if, you know, Leverkusen don't make the top 4, which I guess counts as a bold prediction for myself as well. But I would still tip Leverkusen over Gladbach. We don't know what the state of Gladbach is going to be. Thuram and Sommer may both leave within the next weeks, and you know, there's quality. I mean, they get Florian Neuhaus back. They get, you know, Stindl is going to play, I think, very, very well in his final, what will be probably his final year with the Foles. What they've been able to do with Christoph Kramer, getting him up ahead, that's been great. Alassane Play is also a great assist meister, but if Thuram leaves, all bets are off.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely. I mean, he was their star. He was one of the stars of the Hinrunde this year, and he went into the World Cup on form, didn't he? I mean,
it's my opinion that Bayern will eventually cave and pay 10 million for Sommer as their new number 1 keeper now that Neuer is out. So, yeah.
Well, they have to do something at the end of the day, don't they? Because I mean, they can't start with. They've already said they're not going to start with the number 2, are they? So because he's made a lot of mistakes over the recent years, and he's not good enough to be a number 1. But then, I mean, obviously, they want to get the guy who's on loan as well at Monaco, but he actually turned them down, from what I can gather, which surprised me a little bit.
Nubel is not coming.
Yeah, Nubel,
Yeah, he is not coming, and they could go with Sven Ulreich. They won Ulreich. Yeah, he helped them win the league 2017-18 when Neuer had his metatarsal surgery, but he also made that crucial error in the Champions League that year. Yeah. So they have that on their mind. It might be look, if they can't get Sommer, then all they can do is sign a backup for Ulreich, and then Ulreich is the number 1. They haven't said that publicly that he's not the number 1. That's just, you know, what's going on in the German revolt. So we'll see. Yeah. But I mean, I think Gladbach they're going to get picked clean before the transfer window is out, and I mean, there's a lot of problems on that defensive line. Of course, they get Torre back, but I don't know.
I know what you mean. They're a funny side, but I did see, especially at home, some of the home performances were really inspired me. And I do believe that Farke is a good manager. But as you say, they've just got big problems defensively for a long time. I think also Ben Tabaini is a name that you've not mentioned as well. He could potentially leave. I think Dortmund will link with him for an 11 or 12 million euro move.
Oh, he's going to leave. Well, I think he's going to leave on a free. I think they're going to let him leave on a free at the end of the season.
Yeah.
So I think he sticks with Gladbach for the duration of the season.
Yeah.
But, without Koita Kura, they really had problems in central defense.
Yeah.
One of my Americans that I cover on a weekly basis, Scally, and the right back has been up and down. There's and there's no real solution in the midfield, I think. I mean, he's been, I've the only person that I've seen who's performed consistently well would be Julian Weigl, and but he doesn't have a sixth partner. So I'm a little concerned about that. But they're certainly look. I tipped them for the relegation race at the beginning of the season, so they've made a fool out of me, and they've exceeded my expectations. And I'm very
definitely. Yeah, just an interesting comment as well coming in from Ballum too, which is in contrast to what you said, Peter. Ballum, who's one of our British followers, by the way, said Leipzig are expected on paper to be the only team to compete with Bayern. Leipzig will want to win Friday night, and we might get a title race. Leipzig are the only chance German football have. Well, I mean, I think that's the complete opposite, pretty much, about what German football fans feel. What do you feel about that? Obviously, as a native German, Peter.
We'd like to have a title race, of course. I stand by Eintracht Frankfurt as potential title contenders. It may not be the most popular viewpoint at this point, but I think the team is really clicking, and I think that all of these players are also playing to move up. I mean, Frankfurt's going to get dismantled after the season. They don't have the money to keep this team together. So, I mean, I think that they seriously have a chance. How would Germany react to an RB Leipzig title? I can tell you that when RB Leipzig were in the later stages of the Europa League last year, everybody was watching Frankfurt. Nobody was watching Leipzig. When Leipzig beat SC Freiburg in the Pokal finale last year, we were all pretty downbeat. We wanted to see Christian Streich and the lads get that going. Would it be the end of the world if Leipzig won the title? Not necessarily. I should emphasize this. I've said this before, that Leipzig aren't as disliked as, say, Hoffenheim are, because even though it's a non-50+1 team, even though it's a corporation that's running it, even though it's a foreign corporation that's running it, we're okay with the fact that the former East Germany has some representation. They need some representation. Of course, we have that in FC Union Berlin now.
Yeah.
Prior to that, we went 10 years in the Bundesliga without there being an Eastern European or Eastern German team out there. And that was bad for German football. It was just bad for German football. It was bad for German fan culture, too, because a lot of the teams, the former East German teams in the lower divisions, their ultra groups started getting more rightist and leaning more towards the Eastern Bloc countries and things like that. So we're okay with East Germany having some representation. It would not be the end of the world. It would not be a travesty if Leipzig were to win the title. Still not what what we're hoping for.
Yeah, I think also for me, obviously, as a British guy living in Germany, I personally would be happy to see Leipzig win it. But at the same time, having spoken to a lot of German people about it, I can understand that RB Leipzig effectively go completely against the traditions of German football. The 50+1 is like a religion here, basically. Especially in my own team as well. FC Nuremberg are one of the big fan promoters of the 50+1 rule, and I know for a fact that I actually saw FC Nuremberg play Leipzig live, and there were big protests from the ultras holding up banners saying like, why do we want a fizzy drinks club in the Bundesliga and things.
They do an
like
atmosphere boycott. That's very common in the stands. An atmosphere boycott for Leipzig. Whenever Leipzig comes to town, you do an atmosphere boycott. For the first 15 minutes of the fixture, no chanting, no singing, no nothing. The stance that the German fan groups take against Leipzig is to remain silent, because they're not. This is a corporate club. And we're kind of running short on time, so I won't go into greater depth. I know you want to talk about the maybe relegation tips as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So we are exactly going to go straight onto the relegation race. So yeah, I mean, obviously, I'll just take you through the current state of play for those of you that have forgotten. I mean, we've got Schalke in 18th with only 2 wins and 9 points. I think they actually won against Mainz to give themselves a little bit of hope towards the end of the Hinrunde. But still, it was a pitiful first half of the season for the Nordrhein-Westfaleners. And then we've got Bochum, I mean, they're still in the second bottom, but they've got 13 points and they made a brilliant finish. I think they won 3 of the last 4 games to really give themselves hope and, took themselves nicely, only a point behind Stuttgart, who are occupying the playoff place at the moment, which is obviously third from bottom. Hertha Berlin, it's been another struggle of a season for them, despite an improvement in the style of play and the tactics, but they've still not got the results that they warranted to get them further up the table. They're also joint on 14 points with a slightly better goal difference. And then we've got Augsburg on 15 points. They went the other way, didn't they? They were absolutely brilliant in the first few weeks of the season, and everyone thought, Augsburg could push for top half, but they absolutely plummeted, didn't they, in probably the last 5 games, really, wasn't it? I think they lost maybe all 5 of them, or they only got 1 point from those 5. But it was a poor end. And then I'd say the only other team you'd probably say are in the relegation fight, probably FC Köln, who also had a poor last 5 games or so. They're on 17 points. So, yeah, Peter, who's kind of sticking out there? Which teams do you think are really going to get relegated and who could potentially get away from it?
I believe Schalke are most definitely going down. They've lost Sebastian Polter. They've lost their new signing, Nicholas Tower. They are trying to get some more help, but they just simply don't have the money. They don't have the resources. As I said, I believe Bochum are going to be safe based on the fact that it's a quality team. They've made some quality signings. If you had asked me this morning whether or not I thought Hertha were going to be in the relegation race, I would have said yes, but I think Florian Niederlechner is coming from Augsburg as soon as Kelvin Yeboah is signed. So that should give them enough to stay above the fray. I'm very deeply concerned about FC Köln. This is a Conference League side that finished the first phase of the season, not quite the Hinrunde, in terrible form. They don't have very good players. Most of their players are second league level at best. And when your big winter signing is Davy Selke,
that says everything you need to know.
Right. I'm deeply concerned about them. And I'm also hopefully, maybe Rory is not watching in detail. I'm very, very worried about Stuttgart. They are as I wrote in my transfer column earlier this month, these are not the wild boys. They're just wild. They're all over the place. They're a bunch of raw young guys that just don't seem to. And Bruno Labbadia is supposedly, he's saved Hertha, he's saved Hamburg SV, he's saved Wolfsburg, so on and so forth. A good German Feuerwehrmann, a fireman. I think his luck is, after his last spell at Hertha, I don't. Maybe he's just not a good coach after all. He's too, I don't think I think he can't see the forest for the trees often. So my pick, Schalke and Stuttgart going in direct relegation, and Köln on the playoff place where they will probably beat FC Kaiserslautern.
Well, it definitely won't be FC Nuremberg anyway.
Yeah, and then everybody else survives. So yeah, and Stuttgart going down is terrible news for German football. I mean, and Schalke too. I don't want to see either one of them go away. But those are my 2 direct relegation picks.
Yeah, I think I've got to agree with you on Schalke. I just didn't see anywhere near enough to think that they were just woeful, to be honest with you, in the first half. Just so poor. Like, they just have nothing going forward. The defense was woeful. They've obviously lost Molle, who was, I wouldn't say good, but he was half decent. I mean, he's gone for a pretty pitiful sum of 1.5 million, I think, to Nantes in France, hasn't he? Well, I mean, it's just, they might see that as a good deal, but I mean, it's another body down that they're not going to be able to replace. Probably, as you mentioned, Tower is the kind of big signing, but he's picked up an injury. Polter, who wasn't really great in the first half of the season, but he's also got injured. And I think they're going in a little bit weaker in terms of squad, and they've just not got the quality to get out of this. And I think they'll probably finish they'll probably beat their last total of 15 points, but I think, you know, you're looking at around about 20, 21 points is all they'll manage to accumulate this season. I think, the second, I agree with you that Bochum, I saw a lot in them in the last 3 or 4 games. And I think they're a side that, as you mentioned, they had a traumatic start this season, losing a lot of players, but they did bring a little bit of quality in behind closed doors as well, really, you know. And I do like the coach Lech as well. I think he's, I preferred Thomas Rice, don't get me wrong. Thomas Rice is a great coach, but you know, it was probably time for him to part company with them, with the fact that they had such poor form, basically, didn't they? You know, I think they lost the first 5 or 6 games. So to consider they've got 13 points on the board despite losing the first 5 or 6 is a pretty good effort. And, you know, they're averaging way over a point a game during the last 10 games or so. So I don't see any reason why they'd go down. You know, they've got a good home support as well, some quality players, you know, as you mentioned some of the names before. I think they'll stay up. I agree that Stuttgart just inspires zero confidence in me whatsoever. I think aside from Mavropanos, I don't really see any like top level Bundesliga players in the squad. And even Mavropanos has been linked with a move to Atletico Madrid as well during the time, which I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest, if he jumped ship. You know, he's given everything he can to the club. But, I mean, he just can't progress to the level he wants to at Stuttgart at the moment. I agree that it would be so sad to lose them. I'm actually hoping to get over to Stuttgart and watch a game before the end of the season too. But they're a massive club with a great support, but they've just not got the money and they've just not got good enough players, and they're making bad decisions all the time. You know, I'm not sure. I agree with you that Labadia didn't really overly inspire me as an appointment as well as a manager. And you know, he just seems to be a bit of a journeyman, doesn't he? Like a Sam Allardyce in England.
Well, he's a fireman, a fireman. Yeah. He's supposed to come and put out the fire. Yeah. But I think the test fixtures have not looked good. The only team that looked worse in the test fixtures than Stuttgart has been Schalke. Yeah. And they really. Labadia's trying to play this old school with these young kids, and I think it all falls apart. Yeah. What do you think about Köln? Do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree on Köln. I'm having sleepless nights over them, to be honest with you. Like, because I love FC Köln as a club. I love Stefan Baumgart, but as you say, they just have no money, and they lost probably the 2 best players in the summer. You know, obviously they lost, as you mentioned, both to Dortmund as well, wasn't it? You know, Salih Özcan and then also Anthony Modeste, and they missed them badly. They didn't, ironically, they started off well, and everyone was thinking it's going to be another productive season for them. But I think they're one of those sides that faded off badly, and I didn't see enough quality in the side by the end. I think they need Ljubicic back, definitely. He's a good player, and he started the season really well. You know, but obviously Florian Kainz is a good player, but he also lost his form in the back end of the Hinrunde, and I just think there's too much pressure on the likes of them to deliver results.
Ljubicic, Ademayan, Stefan Tigges, Linton Meiner, these are all great players for the Zweite Bundesliga. If they go down, they're going right back up. But
but there's just not, as you say, the kind of side that if things start to turn against them, that they could go down. I'm confident they'll just about stay up, though. I think they'll finish 15th, probably, the place above the bottom 3, I think. But I'm actually going to go as third bottom. I'm going to go for, I'm afraid, Hertha Berlin, actually. I just think Hertha Berlin, where do we start? I mean, I want them to do better because I do believe that it's important for German football to have like the biggest club, because they are still the biggest club for me in Berlin, although members are roughly the same between Union and Hertha, but they are the club with the most potential. They've got the stadium, you know, they've got the most history of the 2 clubs, but I want a Berlin club to do well. I want Hertha to do better, really. I'm not like a massive fan of the club, but I think it'd be good for the Bundesliga if they start to kick on more. But I just don't know what's wrong with them. They just don't win football games. It's as simple as that. Like, they're the kind of side that can dominate a game for 90 minutes and still lose one.
Well, because Hanga and Ejuke and Luka Bacchio haven't been able to finish. But if they get Niederlechner, he can finish. And
he is a good player, and also he'd be taking potentially a relegation rivals player as well. But for me, Augsburg, I'm so frustrated by them because when I was watching them in the first 10 games, I was just so impressed, really. There are just so many good players in that team. It's the best Augsburg team I've possibly ever seen in the Bundesliga. I would go that far, really, especially the front line. I mean, they're going to massively miss Niederlechner if he does leave. They really are. But Berisha was superb. Berisha was absolutely superb. And I really, really like, I think the signing from, obviously, Freiburg as well did really, really well.
Demirovic,
he was fantastic in the first half of the season.
Berisha up front. I mean, and maybe Echo or Yeboah. I think they're going to be fine. I think
I'd like to see more from Stefan Dorsch, because obviously he was a player that really came in with big.
They're going to get him. Dorsch and Andi Maya, the two Germany.
Maya I'm a fan of him too.
Two Germany U21 internationals. They're going to run the midfield. They're going to have a great midfield. So
I'm confident that and I like the manager as well. I'm a fan of him too. I do believe that they could be the team that, for me, have the big second half of the season and actually go up the table. For me, I just don't see how they can possibly be anywhere near the bottom three, because I just think the team's too good. The football was very good in the first half of the season. They just didn't get the results. They were 3-0 up against Leipzig and somehow didn't win that game. And that game was the one that knocked the confidence. And then they had a few poor results after that. But they can't go down, for me, Augsburg. They really can't go down. So I think it's between, Köln, as you say, they've definitely got a chance of going down. Bochum also have got a chance, but I do believe that Augsburg and Bochum will be there's two sides that get pulled away from that bottom six, and it'll be between those four, basically. And I think, Schalke are gone for me already, and it'll be between Stuttgart, Hertha, and Köln for those other two positions. But as I say, I'm going to plump for Stuttgart automatic relegation and Hertha as third from bottom, unfortunately.
So they're the ones who beat Kaiserslautern in the playoffs. Thank you, Rory.
Exactly. You never know. Yeah, Rory coming in there as well in the chat saying, up the BFB. He's going for BFB to survive. Wow. Yeah, it's. I'm sorry, Rory, but both of us are tipping your boys to go this year. We've just not seen enough in the side. But hopefully, I do hope. I think both of us hope we'll stay up, but whether they can, I don't know.
You could also beat my hometown club in the relegation playoff. That's possible. Somebody's going to this relegation playoff.
Yeah, that'd be a good one. Okay, absolutely. So that pretty much concludes our predictions ahead of the Rückrunde of the second half of the season. So if you enjoyed what you saw today, obviously it's been quite a long show today, but a very enjoyable one as well. If you enjoyed what you saw today, then check out @OverTheBarFB and @OverTheBar Extra. And also, of course, OTBfootball.net, which is, remember, we're not only a Bundesliga site as well, we also do vlogs from the lower leagues of English football too. We've had some really good ones from Ipswich and Rotherham and Grimsby and a few other places. If you're a fan of lower league English football, then that's the place to go as well. We've also got the Football League Weekly show too, which discusses what's happening in the lower echelons of the English league system. And don't forget as well to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed what you saw today. We're going to be seeing a lot more of Peter as well over the coming weeks too, which is going to be fantastic. But thanks again for joining me, Peter. It's been an absolute pleasure once again.
Yeah, my friend, the Bundesliga is absolutely worth the wait. It's going to come roaring back, and I wish Rory and I will be doing a watch along for Bayern Leipzig on Friday, and then I'll be typing furiously throughout the Englische Woche, the English week, the packed week that gets us. So good luck with that.
That's right. Obviously, we've got a lot of fixtures coming up. It's coming roaring back with an Englische Woche as well. Not next week, the week after. No, sorry, it is. It's next week now. Time flies, right? But definitely. So we've got a lot coming for you. We're gonna also the Wednesday night show as well with Rune is going to be analysing the fantasy football side of things as well. So don't forget to check in there at 9 o'clock Central European time, 8 o'clock UK time. So thanks a lot, guys, for joining us again, and we'll see you again next time. Ciao. Bye-bye, guys.